Hello. This week we have an interview with Helnae. Now, if you don't know who Helnae is, back in the beginning of the fandom, there was a very peculiar piece of fiction called Starry Eyes. Long story short, recently this has come back to life after about a 2 year absence or so, which has left a lot of people, including myself, very happy. So, thank you very much, Helnae. How did you discover Worm?
Let's see if I can remember. Um, at the time, I had just finished what there had been of Methods of Rationality and decided to never look back. And I needed a new story to occupy my time. A bit of a wiki walk on TV tropes later, I happened to come across the Worm page, and I decided, after a bit of looking around, to give it a try. And honestly, I haven't regretted it.
Starry Eyes was one of the first pieces of fanfiction I ever read in the fandom, and it feels like it was in the confirmed dead status a few years ago. What made you pick it up again, or did you just always have it on the back burner?
So the thing is, um, one of the reasons to do with having put Starry Eyes on a back burner, as it were, is that, well, I've been just struggling with depression for a good while now. One of the effects it has is it basically saps away at my motivation to, do stuff, even stuff I enjoy. Now, the funny thing is that I don't particularly enjoy writing in general, though Starry Eyes has been on the high end of the writing enjoyment spectrum. And to top it all off, I have ADD. So when you mix them all together, you get the hiatus I went through. Now, during the entire hiatus, I pretty much always had the document open and would look at it from time to time, but it was only recently, relatively speaking, that I actually started typing away at it. Uh, Full disclosure, of course, I had about the first half of 3.1 written prior to the hiatus going in full swing. Of course, I can't say exactly why I decided to pick it up again, but I'm sure a lot of people are happy I did.
What was your favorite part of Worm?
My favorite part of Worm? Honestly, I have this thing where it's a bit difficult to decide on my favorite of anything. However, the bits before uh, Skitter became Weaver were pretty enjoyable in my mind. The stuff after that was a bit weaker.
How did you come up with the power for Taylor? Given that it's quite an out there idea, becoming a person shaped void to the elder gods covered in skin, was there anything in particular that inspired it?
So, coming up with the power. Um, I guess the best answer for that is that I'm kind of a weird gal. I enjoy body horror, and I've got a bit of a thing for freaking people out. It's kind of fun. From what I can recall, the initial concept was that of a cape who, rather than concealing their identity via putting on a mask, would do so by removing their face. Then the Lovecraft elements made their welcome intrusion, and the result gradually morphed into the final product seen in the fic. As for inspirations, the elements of the fic were at least partially inspired by the visual novel Saya no Uta, which I sincerely adore.
What was your favorite thing to write?
I'll be the first to admit that my memory isn't the best, but from what I can recall, the part in which Taylor, as Starfield, met and interacted with the wards was pretty fun. Or at least that's what I gather, since it's my longest chapter by far.
Starry Eyes seems to be the story of someone who's rather uncomfortable in their skin, literally, and has to shed their presumed identity to become who they are. This feels very much like a metaphor for gender dysphoria or something similar. Was that part of the intent?
Amusingly enough, I hadn't realized consciously that the story could be interpreted as a metaphor for gender dysphoria until you had pointed it out. That said, of course, I can totally see it now. So yeah, it wasn't consciously part of the intent, but I wouldn't discount the possibility of subconscious influence. And at this point, it seems a little nifty, given certain circumstances.
It seems that when it comes to unspeakable horrors, people just can't help but make them cute. You managed to write these absolute madness-inducing monsters as something relatable and huggable without completely discarding the part that makes the human brain want to run away and melt into a puddle. How do you manage the balance?
So I'll probably botch my attempt at describing this, but, well, I just do what seems to work best. Um, the various creatures that Taylor has befriended, well, I guess I kind of treat them as people, but try to keep in mind that they're definitely not human. Especially since, from Taylor's point of view, they're all cuddly and stuff, and friendly. But from anyone else's perspective, they're horrifying monsters who, like, say in Arya's case, would gladly devour a living human or two just because they taste good. Of course, to Taylor's kind of warped point of view, she's a caring and loyal friend, but, well, what can you do? But yeah, it's basically, it involves treating horrific stuff as cuddly, even though it's obvious to the reader that it can be horrific. And yeah, I think I've pretty much botched that, but might have gotten the point across, I don't know.
What's your favorite fanfiction and why?
My favorite fanfiction? Well, given that my preferences are as mercurial as they are, it can be a little bit difficult for me to decide on a favorite. That said, a couple that I really like are Hunter by Unwelcome Storm and Centipede by Penguin. Also, I seem to have a bit of a preference for stories in which the main character becomes a bit of a cannibal, willingly or not. This might give insight into some future developments for Starry Eyes, I don't know.
Any other recommendations?
Other recommendations? Well, like I said, it's a bit difficult for me to decide on favorites and all that. That said, one book I've read recently that I think people should probably have a look into is this book called The Interminables. Yeah, I pronounced that right. By Paige Orwin, which is about a wizard who can steal time and the personification of the horrors of World War I as a bit of a buddy cop thing. Except not really. It's interesting.
Thank you very much, Helnae.
Oh, thank you very much for having me, Kashiro. It was enjoyable.
I'll see you guys next time.